Azim, would you please tell us, if anybody listens right through to the very end of today, what alpha are you going to be sharing with them?
Ooh, that's a great question. Honestly, I think the biggest thing that I want people to understand would be that success in this industry does not come overnight.
Today, we get to sit down with Azim. Azim is a trailblazer whose journey across Web3 blends deep technological innovation, social impact, and thought leadership. As co-founder of Mydin, he is building the next generation zero-knowledge blockchain that recently fundraised $25 million in its seed round. Azim's expertise includes advisor to the UNICEF Crypto Fund to help design blockchain tools for global good. He has distributed millions in grants as Gitcoin head of impact and mentored numerous startups as venture partner and operator. Welcome to DealFlow Founders Stories, where I get to sit down with some of the smartest people in the world building the most innovative tech. I am your host, all the way from New Zealand, Keira, but you can find me online digitally as Miss AI. I promise to bring to you raw, unfiltered, no-fluff stories from tech founders themselves. Today, we get to sit down with Azim. Welcome, Azim.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this since you reached out. It's going to be a fun conversation.
Definitely is. Well, Azim, would you please tell us, if anybody listens right through to the very end of today, what alpha are you going to be sharing with them?
Ooh, that's a great question. Honestly, I think the biggest thing that I want people to understand would be that success in this industry does not come overnight. I think that'd be the biggest thing because in general, especially when I meet people who aren't in crypto, but even the ones who are in crypto, there's this notion of being able to find massive success in very short periods of time. And I do think that as this industry matures, we need to dispel that idea because you don't sort of see that anywhere else. But this idea of sort of winning the lottery being part of what you're supposed to do as being someone who's in crypto is something that I think is generally bad for our industry.
I love that alpha, and I can't agree more because everybody thinks this is a get rich quick
Hmm.
industry, but it's not. It's just the next step of technology, and everyone's building in it. And yes, it's been associated with some of get rich quick, but that's not the
Yeah,
fundamentals.
exactly, exactly. And I think more and more, and it'll be shows just like this and discussions around what's going on that it doesn't become someone bought a picture of a monkey JPEG and then they sold it for seven figures. They're going to realize, wait, this is just a new industry of technology, setting up a new set of jobs and a new way to do innovation. The same way that we've thought about for so many other times that innovation has occurred. And so I'm a big fan of people starting to realize that.
I am also excited, and it is hopefully the challenge that we are going to be breaking down today so people get to know you as a person a little bit better, the man behind the tech. So, to start that off, I would like to ask you 5 very quick questions that you should be able to answer in under 5 seconds, and these are some icebreakers just so people can get to know you. So, describe Mydin in 3 emojis.
Three emojis. Ooh, I don't use emojis enough for this. Money sign,
Mm-hmm.
the one that does like the silence,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think
Uh-huh.
would be one of them. Yeah, and then oof, this is hard. What is this? I think just smiley face.
Just smiley
Just
face,
like
we'll go
the
with that.
the one with the yeah, just the teeth. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Perfect. All right. How about the next one? Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Sadly, yes.
Okay. What is one of the most underrated founder habits?
Sleeping early.
I know about that one. You can probably see the bags. Okay. Would you rather be able to speak all languages or talk to animals?
To animals.
Ooh, I like. Okay.
Suck. I would love to talk to animals.
Have you ever seen the program Eliza Thornberry, like the Wild Thornberries or
Of
something?
course. Of course.
Yeah, I was also a fan. All right, last question. One Web3 jargon that we can all do without.
Adding phi to everything. I hate it.
I agree.
I
I
hate it.
like it. Cool, cool, cool. All right, let's get into the meat of the questions, but that was a little bit of fun. So, cool. I want to dive back to your history before crypto, before 2008, so we get to know exactly more who are you. So, I think something that not a lot of people know about you is that you studied a master's at Harvard University. And this is quite a different degree that you might have been heading down the medical field. So I want to know a little bit around what was it that gravitated you towards studying medicine to begin with, and
Yeah.
how has that journey happened from going from academia to tech founder?
Totally. So, this ends up going a little deep. I had originally wanted to be someone who was going to go into the business side of the world. When I got into college when I was 18, a very long time ago, I wanted to go and do, investment banking or private equity, something along those lines. And then when I was 19 years old, I got into a car accident where a drunk driver ran me into a telephone pole, and I was not wearing my seatbelt. And I slammed my head on the steering wheel, and I didn't realize I needed to go to the doctor immediately. I just said, "Oh no, like I'm going to go home." And because I thought I was fine. And for a few days I started noticing really weird symptoms of slurred speech, bright lights were bothering me, things like that. And so I realized I had to go to the doctor and ended up going to Boston Medical Center, and they said that based on what they were hearing from me was that actually it sounded like there might be brain hemorrhaging going on, because traditionally my symptoms should have started improving after days, but it seemed like they were getting worse. And so the doctor walked out of the room, and I looked up at God and said, "Hey, I wouldn't trade being the richest person in the world for having to have irreparable brain damage. Uh, if I get out of this okay, I'm going to do something that like helps benefit people." And I ended up only having a mild concussion, thank God. And while I had that concussion, I decided I didn't want to do business anymore. I wanted to go into medicine. Advisor told me this was the second half of sophomore year, or towards the like first semester of sophomore year. And I went in, my advisor said, uh, you know, "Okay, you want to do medicine, like when do you expect to graduate?" I said, "Well, I want to graduate on time." She literally laughed at me. She was like, "There's no way you're going to graduate on time." So I took that as a challenge and jumped into having a biology background. I took the bio degree, taking all the organic chemistry, physics, all those classes. And then towards the end, I looked into a master's program that I wanted to go to. And it's interesting. Technically my master's program was at Boston University, but first year of it was basically all classes with the Boston medical students, like BU Medical School. And then the second year was doing the thesis. And I was the only student in the entire master's program who found a lab at Harvard Medical School under the world's arguably foremost geneticist. His name is Dr. George Church. And I started studying human genome sequencing. And I did my thesis on human genome sequencing and the idea of if you could circularize the DNA after it's been cut instead of having to do, linear strands of DNA, and if you could make it faster that way. And so after that, I was studying, I was in biotech and I was looking to go to medical school. And I got into medical school actually. And I ran the Boston Marathon with the attacks in 2013, the one where they shut the city down. And uh, I was, thankfully okay. The military quarantined me from finishing the race at like mile 24. And Then I was living in Boston at the time as well. So when they shut the city down, I was also in Boston when they were looking for the attackers. And it was just a week of a lot of introspection where, it'd been a long time where I realized medicine wasn't necessarily actually for me. It was too by the book. It was too straightforward. It was, there was too many things about it that didn't actually go with who I was, but I'd put years and hundreds of thousands of dollars into the degrees and everything, right? And then when I ran the race and I sat around that week in Boston, a lot of introspection where I said, I could have died more than one time this week. I don't want to do anything in life that I don't absolutely love. And just because life really is that short, I think it's really easy to think, oh, 20 years from now, I'm going to do these things, not realizing that you could just die when you're going for a run. And so for me was that week I decided I quit my biotech job, literally just right there, and I rescinded my offers from medical schools. And I had been working on a tech startup part-time at that point, and I decided to go full in on that. And it was that summer of 2013 I raised money for the first time. We raised $250,000 in angel money.
And how old would have you been then when you
I
raised your
was
first?
25.
Cool. Sorry, carry on. I just wanted to pull it into
Yeah, no
context.
worries. No worries. Yeah. And then I also started writing for the Huffington Post then. And, I gave out an article that was basically, hey, I'm a Pakistani American Muslim who was a victim and not a suspect in everything that happened. And so let's have empathy. Let's not point fingers at brown people. And, I talked about how, my parents almost went into the last train into the World Trade Center when 9/11 happened even. And so like I have, really been on the victim side of this in ways that doesn't normally happen. And the piece went viral, basically. And they said, you could sort of write whatever you want, whenever you want. And I'd been looking at what was going on in crypto, just sitting on Twitter while I was applying for jobs. I got on Twitter in 2009, maybe.
Mhm.
And so I'd already sort of seen, like, it was mostly Bitcoin. There was nothing else at the time. But I I met the people who were creating the New York City Bitcoin Center here in the financial district in New York, where I
Okay.
live. And at the end of 2013, they invited me to a New Year's party they were hosting as like the opening of this place. And they said if things were interesting, they would love to have me write about it. And this was, I went to the party. All these people are drunk. They're trading Bitcoin and Dogecoin, like old school stock style, where they're like screaming bids into a crowd of people. And it was like, I'll give you $600 for your Bitcoin. I'll give you $650 for your Bitcoin. And I remember just looking, yeah, yeah, I'll send you the article after this. And I remember looking
Yes.
around and yeah, I was like, oh, this industry is not going anywhere. I was like, this industry is here to stay. And that was what sort of led me down from, you know, the medicine route in a TLDR to thinking, I want to be part of this industry. Whatever that looks like, I want to be part of this industry. And now, 12 to 12 years later are where we are now.
That is an incredible story. There's a few near-death moments, a lot of hype, and I think that what I can
Yeah,
hear from that is that you're always following your passion and not afraid to
always.
try something. So I think that's what has been the narrative for you leading into the whole entire crypto world. And I can see that through your experience. And once you got into the crypto world, you have been multiple founders, advisors across many different projects, which we'll get into in soon. I want to know if we would just to close out your previous history, like, do you think that the way that you said that you're studying in biology and genome sequencing, right? And sequencing is very linear. And if we can kind of make the analogy to blockchain with sequencing and you're trying to figure it out that and make it go faster, do you think that initial scientific biological background sparked some interest or some curiosity to you when you did discover blockchain? You're like, this makes sense, or is it
Totally.
just abstracted?
Totally, because the whole idea of science is being able to, especially biology, is taking a look at what you have in front of you and then creating hypotheses of what's potentially possible, and then doing the work that you need to see how you could prove your theses correct. And then sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, sometimes they're partially right and you learn something and you sort of take that experiment forward. And I would extend it even further to sort of that's what entrepreneurship is in many ways, right? Like some people by mistake discover penicillin and create one of the biggest things possible. Some people, I think it was Viagra was originally intended as a heart medication and they had people take it and then they found out that there were different side effects that came of it, and now it became what it is sold as, right? And so, what is that if nothing other than just tinkering the way that an entrepreneur does? And so, in general, I was one of those kids who was selling candy and baseball cards and Pokemon cards and sneakers and everything as a kid. So it was like, always that story of like the traditional entrepreneur. But I've had a lot of people ask me, do you think it was a waste of money that you spent all that money and time in those years studying biology for a degree that you don't use? And I said, Not at all. Like it taught me how to work really hard. It taught me how to put in hours and just like, there's no way to learn all of that stuff without putting in intense hours, having to make sacrifices on other parts of your life to make sure that you do things right. There were so many things about it. Being able to memorize a ton of stuff, being able to conceptually and theoretically understand things, being able to work around people who were also extremely competitive and very good and very smart, you know. So there was so much about it. It taught me to be regimented. I was one of the people throughout college where I was in bed between 9 and 10 p.m. and then I was at the gym when it opened at 5:30 in the morning. And, even just being able to really teach me that kind of discipline in itself was a gift that I can carry with me today.
I'm going to tell you a little bit of alpha about myself as I also studied pre-med and I have also had these questions many times before. Keira, do you regret wasting all of that time and just memorizing books and books and books? Because that's what human biology is. It hasn't changed for many years and it's not going to change for many years moving forward. And I'm also the same. I think that it taught me a huge amount of discipline. It teaches you how to recall information and a massive amount of discipline because the thigh bone always connects to the knee bone and that's not changing. You can't fake it. So I think medicine does have some really good disciplines that you do learn when you're studying at that sort of level.
100%. You have to push yourself. Like there's so many things about it that I think it wasn't the biology itself, but it was the lessons that having to learn the biology and the pre-med stuff taught me, sitting there taking organic chemistry classes and trying to figure out how many carbons are on this thing and recreating it and changing it. It's all conceptual theoretical work, but it challenges your brain in ways that I'm very appreciative of.
Very much so. All right, let's fast forward a little bit. We're going to move right forward to I want to know, do you watch reality TV?
I do not. I do not watch any TV.
Okay.
It's yeah, I have this weird relationship with television where I can go months and months and months without watching a single show. If I do watch stuff, it's because my wife wants me to watch something with her, but she's even learned that getting me to watch TV shows with her is very difficult. But for whatever reason, I'm more open to movies and reality TV, I really can't do.
Okay, well, tell me a little bit more. So, in 2023, you were the judge on Binance's first crypto-themed entrepreneurial
Yes.
reality
Mm.
TV program. Can you take us behind the scenes of what was going on with this?
That one was a real irony, and I remember chatting with friends saying, I don't watch TV and I really don't watch reality TV, and somehow I've ended up as a host on a reality
This is
TV
why
show, even
I
if it's
asked.
in the yes, even if it's in the metaverse, it's still a reality TV show. That was definitely irony. So honestly, I was at Gitcoin at the time, and Gitcoin was an interesting company for me because it felt like being sort of like in public office where everyone knew me and everyone was happy to take my calls and everyone wanted to chat. And so I knew the exchanges, I knew the venture funds, I knew the high net worth individuals, I knew the protocols. I had, a 10,000 foot overview understanding of what was going on. And I'd been chatting with Binance about funding some of the grants rounds that we had going on. And they said, hey, we'll chat with you about that later, but we had a question. Would you be open to coming on to this Shark Tank in the Metaverse TV show that we're going to be doing? And the other people who will be the sharks will be really big names where I even now looking back, even I'm someone who had done well for myself, was in a good position, but the other people who were sharks, one was the other co-founder of Binance. Everyone knows CZ, but there's Kanye. She was one of the judges. Then there was Robbie Young, who's the CEO of Animoca. He was one of the judges. And then it was Coin Bureau, the YouTuber who has like millions of subscribers, right? And so I remember looking at the list and going, not to say I'm insecure about the success that I've had, but just from like an objective standpoint, these people are way more successful than I am. And we ended up doing it. It was super fun. We realized the difficulties that come with trying to do television remotely. Like the idea that when you're doing recording, everyone needs to have a certain internet speed and how audio works and like, time zones. There was all these issues. So it was interesting experiencing that. And the show was actually very cool. We recorded it over the course of 2 days, and it was, 12 hours a day of sitting and recording. And they chopped everything up. And then right before they were starting to do what was going to be heavy promotion, CZ ended up getting that like DOJ notice, and the problems that they had ended up starting. So we chatted with the Binance team. And it was like, hey, like we're not going to be able to heavily promote like a reality TV show at the moment. So it never went anywhere. But it is a random funny thing where I'm like, yes, I've been on a reality TV show for Binance.
So cool. I was just trying to look for it, but that explains exactly why I couldn't find the actual episodes because maybe it never aired. But speaking of Hollywood, let's keep on the reality
Mhm.
TV, but I want to go into more celebrity style. You
Yeah.
told me that Kanye West owes you $75,000. Can we please dig
Yes.
into that?
Yes. 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 So to date it back a little bit further, when I realized I could write anything I wanted for the Huffington Post, I decided that I would start interviewing hip hop artists. I grew up as a huge hip hop fan and decided to use that platform as a way to reach out to meet and tell the stories of artists and people in the industry that I appreciated. And so I very quickly built up a network in the industry because I wasn't looking to get anything from anyone. I didn't need to do clickbait. It wasn't my full-time job. And so singers, songwriters, producers, managers, agents, label people, everyone just started becoming friends. And I continued, I was working in tech at the time. And so, at most I would just get like really cool Instagram photos. Like I have so many photos of like with all of my favorite artists of wearing their jewelry, things like that. It was just like a fun thing I would do. And I realized at one point I had a friend who was building apps and websites for people. And he started getting a lot of inbound and he knew artists as well. And I sat down with him and I asked him some questions around, how are you handling your taxes? What have you done for corporate stuff? He had done none of those things. And so I said, why don't we just partner together and put together a dev shop of sorts? This was in 2016. And we started a company where we ended up doing stuff for Kanye West, Tiana Taylor, Bryson Tiller, Ray Shremmerd, Boss's website out of Dreamville. Because we were just leaning on the relationships we had, and we'd meet with people. And it was funny because those weren't the things that really paid the bills. Those were the things that helped us get the deals that then paid the bills, right? You like the sexy stuff doesn't ever really pay the bills. But when you sit down with people and go, I'm building something for, Bryson Tiller was massive then. Go like, yeah, we're working with Bryson Tiller right now. We just did his website. Everyone's like, well, I want you to do my website too. And so with Kanye's team, it's funny, I never actually personally met Ye, but I was working with everyone around his team. We would go to the studio, like, all of the people on his label. And it was one of his cousins who told us that they wanted to build two separate apps. One of them, at the time, Kanye was doing the St. Pablo tour, and his merch would sell out every single night. Like it was when the Yeezy sneakers were going crazy and the merch was going insane. And they said that they wanted to build an app that would allow them to do one of two things. One was they wanted to do a pop-up. They said, we want to do, I think it was like 50 city pop up, something like that on the same day. And we want to be able to use a push notification to tell everyone to go to this specific place, and you can buy a golden ticket that gets you to the front of the line. And they wanted to do something that was like, I don't know if you ever saw Birchbox. It was just like a monthly subscription package.
Okay.
So they said, we want to set something up where people could sign up for a subscription and on a monthly basis get, different pieces of merch, which actually it was a brilliant idea. And particularly thinking back, nine going on 10 years ago. And and so we said that sounded good and that we would start building it. And so much of what happens in the music industry is handshake deals. It is not the same way that you have to sign onerous legal agreements to get everything done. It's a bunch of friends who sign, nothing for the most part. Maybe things have changed in the last 10 years and there's a lot of handshake agreements. So we agreed to a number of 50K to do that. And then there was another app where they wanted to build, where he said, like we have the deck I still have the deck of me and Kanye West on the deck together. But we put together something that was going to be like a children's learning app. And they wanted to do stuff where it would be like, there's going to be singing lessons where Ariana Grande will come in and be the voice that teaches kids how to sing or something like that. And
Wow.
they wanted to create this sort of, yeah, like this super app for kids to be able to learn. And so we put together a ton of research, like a ton of research. We put together the deck, we made financial models, we did everything that would be required because they said, hey, we're going to go out, we're going to raise money. And then, and so for that one was, okay, cool, like let's agree to 25K. And that was how the 75 came together. And then when Kanye had that episode, I think it was after the show in Seattle in the fall of 2016, where he started saying anti Jay-Z stuff, and then shortly after was committed to some sort of institution for a short period of time. This team just sort of went dark on me after, and I never really got exactly. I think there was some personal things that some of the folks that we're dealing with, but then just never. So all the work that we did just sort of sat around, did nothing. And I understood pretty easily that that money was never going to come back to me. It's not something where I say Kanye owes me money in a way that I'm trying to get it from him even. It's been a long time. At this point, it just makes for a fun story because it's a very strange thing to say. Then people are like, what are you talking about? And then I give this like very conventional like business story. It's not like some sort of very random thing. It's like something that makes total sense. And they go, oh, that's not what I expected it to be. But yes, he went sort of dark on me after that. And we had shut the dev shop down like 8 months after that anyway. And I haven't chatted with anyone on his team since and didn't really pursue it further. Always understood that even if I wanted to say, I want to go after this, like I don't even have the text messages from back then anymore. It's not like I could actually pursue any of that. But yeah, it's a funny like thing to be able to just go, yeah, like Kanye West owes me a bunch of money.
That is a very juicy story, and Kanye West is just like a keyword, anything with his name. I was like, I want to find out more about this story. And sounds like that the music industry or the arts industry could definitely benefit a lot from using smart contracts, right? If everything's done on
Hmm.
a handshake deal, bring some tech in there, some smart contracts could kind of, fix a lot of things that could be broken in this industry.
100%. 100%.
And okay, I want to keep on the theme of Kanye West because I'm a little bit of a juicy gossip girl. So
All good.
I also know that you have a very diverse, colorful background, and part of your background has been strong into marketing and PR and branding. I
Hmm.
read that you created a company called Coin-dashian that you were the founder of. I heard it was very short-lived after
Yeah.
receiving a cease and desist letter, which I can only imagine from Kim Kardashian herself. Can we dig into this?
It was it was my first project in crypto shortly after I did that first article for the Huffington Post about the New York City Bitcoin Center.
Mhm.
At the time, there was something called Kanye West that had been going around. And I don't remember which exchanges had it. And like the logo for the coin was the Kanye West South Park episode of Kanye being a mermaid, where the entirety of this episode, Kanye kept getting asked this joke, which was like, hey, do you like fish sticks? And then he would say yes, and then they'd say, are you a gay fish? Like fish sticks, right? And like Kanye didn't get it. And in this whole episode, he goes around, he's like, I'm a genius, I'm Steve Jobs, I'm Walt Disney. And so it's just them like sort of making fun of him. And at the end of the episode, he turns into a mermaid and like jumps into the ocean or something. And so they took the logo of like that and they just decided to turn it into like the Coinay West, they called it. I don't know who the founders were at the time. And it did a bunch of press, and then Kanye actually went after them. There was something that happened. It got taken off whichever exchanges it was actually on at the time. And I looked and like I said, this is funny. Why don't I do something called Kim Coin-dashian? And I can piggyback on the press of Kanye West. It was just a troll. I didn't really know what I was doing. There was no Ethereum at the time. There was no ERC. I would have had to figure out how to launch my own version of Bitcoin. I'm not technical. I had no idea what I was doing, but I had a friend make the logo for it. I put up a splash page. I set up a Twitter, and then I started reaching out to the media. And uh, so many publications ended up covering this, but the one that really did it was Newsweek. Newsweek covered us as part of an app like thing for I think it was multiple kinds of bitcoins or cryptocurrency, something like that. And after that, not long after, I ended up getting a cease and desist from not her herself, but from the legal team. I was just like, oh, like there's no way that I'm going to be able to. Like, I just have to stop doing this.
I agree.
I'm not.
Pull your quits, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, like that's okay. Like, this was like a fun experiment while it lasted. But this isn't going to move forward.
That is another good story, but thank you so much for sharing a lot about your past and how you've gotten to where you are today. Those are just a couple of stories that really pricked my ears that I really wanted to dive into it with.
Yeah,
But I want to bring it back to where we are today. And I
totally.
have known you for probably going on a year now that we have been in contact.
Yeah,
When we first met, you were co-founder of Morph. And
correct.
at the start of this year, after you've finished that journey with Morph and you have moved on to a new position as
Hmm.
co-founder of Mydin. And I read on your Twitter page that you spoke to over 100 different projects in this discovery phase of trying to figure out where to go next, where to navigate, really what to do with your skills after finishing up with Morph. And you said that
Yeah.
you met with the co-founder Bobbin and said that he is the most impressive person that you have met in your 12-year crypto career. I want to know, what is it about Bobbin that really stood out to you and wanted to make you fully invest or jump into being co-founder of Mydin?
So Bobbin, he did early ZK work at the Ethereum Foundation. I think he was the first person who was doing early ZK work, so many years ago. And then he went on to Facebook, where he basically led the ZK team while Facebook had their crypto side of things for years. And when they were shutting that down, he then ended up fielding a bunch of offers, but ended up at Polygon, where he was retroactively then considered a co-founder of Polygon as well. And he'd been building this out since the end of 2021. And just the conversations with him, and then also Dominic, who's the other co-founder. Dominic is our co-founder who heavily product focused. He spent time at Raiden. Then he was at Consensus for a while, and after leaving Consensus, went to Polygon and had been working on this with Bobbin for a while. And you know, as I've done so much on the crypto side, for a long time, I've thought there are aspects of a public ledger that will make it such that there's just zero chance that we're going to get to a place that a lot of large institutions want to come on board. But I sat down and I looked at, and I chatted with a bunch of projects who were offering me a ton of money. I would have been able to, had I taken those other jobs, been in a position where my day-to-day would have been less hectic. I would have been able to pay off my student loans and my mortgage this year while also probably getting myself a Porsche. And yeah. The offers were insane. The offer I got, these aren't like Meta type offers, right? Meta's out here offering, 10 figures to people. But I was getting offers to be paid, 7 figures a year with base comp and tokens. And yeah. And it wasn't like
Wow.
the completely low end of 7 figures. It was like a real 7 figure number. And I looked and I chatted with all these projects, and I continued every single time. Like we sort of had a working group, Bob and Dominic and I, dating back to mid-January actually. I was just like, this is interesting. Let's chat, and continued to chat. Here's how I would approach narrative. Here's how I would approach ecosystem. Here's how I'd approach community, social, PR. Here's what I think about token. Here's where I think things are headed. And we would just sort of do these calls. But when I left Morph, I hadn't decided yet that I would go to Mydin because I wanted to make sure that I was picking it for all the right reasons. So on purpose, I sort of treated it like dating. Like I need to make sure that I've really like looked around and asked around because if you think about it, as I'm sure you've seen, whether or not people realize it, starting a business with someone is a marriage, You have to go through ups with them, you have to go through downs with them, you have to go through boring stuff with them. You have to understand how to handle conflict. You should ideally be working together for many years. It's not like something that you work together for 6 months. You especially start a company together, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. These are real numbers that should happen in a successful company. And so I really wanted to make sure that I was doing it for the right reasons and not just doing it because I could go buy a Porsche. Like I would love to buy a Porsche. I look forward to the day I can comfortably buy a Porsche, but I don't wake up every day just wanting a Porsche, right? I want the Porsche to be sort of a nice secondary effect or tertiary effect of the work that I do that happens to put me in a position that I can like have the nice things that I want. But I don't wake up every day with that being the primary objective of what motivates me. And the more I chatted with Bobbin and Dominic, the more I sat down and said, these guys really are excellent at what they do. And I genuinely feel that I can offer a lot of value in a place that they do need it. And it just felt like they were the right team to go with for that. I didn't feel like I was going to be held back in any way. I didn't feel like I would be treated as a, add-on person. I knew that my opinions would be valued and I would be able to work very hard, which doing what we're doing, like work very hard. I just wanted to know that it would be the right set of people to work with. They're extremely humble, extremely hardworking, extremely intelligent. You know, I consistently find myself when we do our team meetings to be the dumbest person in the room, like consistently and like by far. I mean, they make jokes about like polynomials. Like, I have no idea what that means, but they like actually make jokes about it. Like they like Dominic is technically considered a non-technical co-founder, but he has mathematic degrees plural, right? Like my non-technical co-founder has mathematical degrees. Like, and so I'm like, like it's just I really enjoy that where I'm like I'm feeling intellectually challenged on a daily basis. And so it's been a lot of fun.
I can hear that coming through in just the enthusiasm of what you're talking about there. And again, it's telling me that you're consistently following your passion. You've got the nice shiny diamond over here dangling the carrot, but it didn't quite feel right. And this is what you did. You did your due diligence. You knew that you're going to be working with these people for a very long time, which is that long-term vision that a lot of founders don't have in this industry. Again, that's where you're different. And to come in there and to feel at home and comfortable and a place that you can add value and challenge yourself and grow and add something to the wider crypto world, global economics, I think is really awesome. So what is Miden and what are you guys building there?
So it's a reimagining of how blockchains work. We do what we call edge execution or the edge blockchain, which just means it's client-side proving. And so instead of sending computation to the blockchain to execute and then re-execute so it becomes available on all of the ledgers, the execution of that happens on local devices for smartphones and computers. And then it generates a ZK proof that gets sent to the network, and the ZK proof is much smaller. And so it allows you to keep sensitive data on a local device, generate the proof, send over exactly what's needed. That gets verified by the blockchain. And so it makes everything in a way where what we're looking to do is how do you create a blockchain that offers compliance, privacy, and still scalability? And so that's the main thing that we're working at is like having a compliant private blockchain that is scalable and then thinking about what are the kinds of applications that become interesting to build I fundamentally don't believe that blockchains can scale without privacy, nor does my team. I don't think that the idea of a dystopia where everyone knows every single thing that you do. And as we walk into this world of AI, right now it might be difficult and only Chainalysis can do it in an easy way, or I guess like ZachXBT can sleuth around and figure it out. It won't be long, what, 2 years maybe, before you can like set up simple AI agents to be able to understand everything. And while most people may not be thinking about that dystopia, it's a real one. And people, you know, especially in the West, I think they've become accustomed to this idea that not having privacy on blockchains is okay because they still live in a world where they're doing every single thing that they need for their finances privately, and blockchain is sort of their cherry on top. But not, and so I think that they just don't realize the privacy matters because when they spend on their credit cards, with their debit cards, with cash, when they use their bank accounts, they pay their mortgage, all of those things, and their car payments, those aren't done on public ledgers. And the other thing that I really think, and I tweeted about this the other day, I've had a lot of conversations with governments. I've had a lot of conversations with large enterprises. And the funniest thing that comes about is governments do not ever want everything they do to be on a public ledger. They do a lot of shady shit on a daily basis, and they cannot have that shit be completely publicly available for everyone to be able to take a look at. So more than even just, individuals getting privacy, like the idea that institutions and governments need privacy, sometimes for the absolute right reasons. If you can imagine the way the Ethereum Foundation gets scrutinized whenever they move money around, if every publicly traded company got scrutinized the same way anytime they did anything, it wouldn't work, right? And so from that perspective, we just don't see a world where blockchain can genuinely scale without privacy. And while we do understand there are many solutions and options now coming about or that are already in the works as to how privacy is going to work, we think the idea of privacy being baked in from the foundational level of the blockchain is what makes the most sense.
Yeah, I agree because even if you think about it, even not on the government level, but on a private scale, companies don't want to be disclosing how much the salaries are. Like you were just talking that different sorts of salaries, like that is confidential information. So it's actually restricting companies from being able to use this blockchain technology for just, within their own small company, unless they build or use another solution on top of an already existing blockchain. So Mydin is doing it differently. It's bringing everything into the foundational, fundamental level, right? The privacy, along with all of the other benefits that bring with blockchain, right?
Correct.
Cool.
Absolutely. That is it.
And so, whereabouts are you guys at in your roadmap? Like, how far through development are we, and where are you guys looking at progressing next?
I think we're going to be in a place where by Q4 things should be ready to launch. We have a final testnet that should be coming out by the end of next month or early September. And then after that, we'll just be deciding, there's business factors that come into play. I want to help some ecosystem companies raise some money. We're going to be looking to do a Series A. We are looking to work with some traditional financial institutions. How do we get some pilots going, MOUs, LOIs? Dealing with exchanges is its own sort of set of completely unique issues. And so we're aiming to have the tech ready for Q4 and then figuring out what's going to make sense on being able to get some of those other things done and what that looks like for being able to get a launch out. But hopefully sooner rather than later, we're in a position that way more people will be able to build on Mydin.
That is a exciting end of year road runway that you guys have got coming up. So very good luck with everything coming up, and I'm sure it'll go as smoothly, but with a lot of hard work behind that, I'm sure as well.
Absolutely.
So I want to bring it back around to another question. You mentioned earlier on in this conversation that you have a migrant background, right? And a theory from blockchain was to bank the unbanked. I want to know, is Mydin achieving this? Is it going to be solving this? Is it actually going to be accessible to everybody on the world, right?
My hope is yes. It's something I'm very interested in. It's part of why I'm talking to so many banks. I think one of the main theses that I've put together over the years is that in the West, blockchains are a cherry on top, but in a large part of the world, they can be the way that you leapfrog the fact that there are no traditional banking architecture and you can jump into tech like crypto to begin with. I think that there's more of an actual need, and there's a lot of studies that show that there actually would be a real need to do this. How do you give everyone access to saving accounts? How do you give them access to peer-to-peer transactions? How do you give them access to yield-bearing accounts, basic credit and lending markets, things that are just so completely overlooked when you grow up in the West, where there is these sort of banking architecture everywhere you go. So definitely looking at that. And there's been things that are interesting to me. What does it look like to potentially partner with a mobile phone provider, be able to offer native account abstraction, tie the wallet to a cell phone number, and then be able to, say, through a partnership with X mobile phone company or telco, that all of a sudden we have onboarded a million users, 5 million users, 10 million users, whatever their actual distribution is. And then what does it look like to give them all an airdrop? Hey, here's, 5 USD each or something like that. Or let's launch something and there's an airdrop to them. I think even the airdrop meta, it's like a bunch of whales getting more who then go and do farming things because they have money and then they make more money. That's not innovative. That's not fun. I'm way more interested in seeing, how do you give someone who has $0 $1,000, and how does $1,000 change their lives for the better, right? And so there's a lot of things that I don't think that have been done when it comes to working with any of the developing nations as a whole. But I think there's top-down and bottom-up ways to do it. I've mostly, for the most part, so far explored what does it look like to do it top-down. I'm also looking at what is it, I went to Buenos Aires last year because President Milei hosted a very small, like 150 person private gathering. And it was an event that I attended and met with a lot of folks. I'll be in Buenos Aires again later this year. I've been chatting with a couple of governments in Africa, been chatting with governments in different parts of Asia. So like looking at what would it look like? How would you have to do it? What is the necessary things? How mature do we have to be? What kind of applications already need to be built on top of us? What can we jointly build? So we will see. But absolutely, it is a personal thing that I think matters a lot. And
Mm.
my hope would be that I can say that part of my personal success in life is tied towards being able to find ways to bank the unbanked, as opposed to what I say these days is a bunch of rich people who are banked figuring out how to become unbanked. I think it's like very backwards, right? If
That
you
is,
look at it, it's very backwards. Like the original thesis of like let's bank the unbanked has now become, hey, the people who are banked want to become unbanked. The
mm,
no shot at them, but one of the most popular media companies in our space is literally called Bankless. Like it's people who have zero issues getting access to banking, wanting to become bankless.
yeah, the theory has kind of shifted because of, I guess, I mean, even look at Bitcoin, we're at all-time highs at the moment. It's just untouchable for so many different people. So I love that you're bringing it back around to those grassroots and the fundamental utility of what blockchain can provide if it's used in the right way. And by the sounds of it, you're talking, excuse me, with all of the right people to be implementing it in these different worlds. And it's very exciting. And I'm definitely going to be following along for this. So, but I have also found out from our conversation that it doesn't seem like you stop. You're in one country, you're talking to one government all around the world. I want to know in this crazy crypto world that it's 24/7, it's not like Wall Street, it doesn't turn off, and it's very global. You have to be connected, and also running as a co founder, you're wearing all the different hats at the same time. And I want to know, what do you do outside of crypto to maintain balance and continue to spark curiosity in your own life?
I I journal daily. I've been journaling for over 7 years now. I lift weights 4 times a week. I enjoy fitness as a whole, whether it's yoga, boxing, running, weightlifting, whatever it would be. I find it's a great way to turn my brain off. Spend time with my wife, spend time, friends and family, play video games,
Do you have a
reading
favorite?
books for
Favorite book and favorite video game?
favorite book. The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu is
Okay.
definitely my favorite book. It's an interesting book. No one knows if Lao Tzu was even real. And it's like a bunch of these like very smart things that are said that when you read them, they don't make any sense. And then you keep reading them and they start to make sense. And then it uncovers more layers over time. So I'm constantly reading it because so much of it, it sounds weird. It only makes sense once it makes sense. And so a lot of it is being able to go through life in a way that sort of uncovers the truths that are hidden in it. And so it's definitely by far my favorite book. Uh, favorite, what was the next thing?
Video game.
I'm just a basic Call of Duty fan. I think it's just like it's just an easy way to like sit down for like 45 minutes and just, go into a multiplayer mode and usually just get smoked by 14-year-olds. For the most part, like I don't have enough time to play where I can be like properly good, above average, but I'm by nowhere, no means really good. And so usually it's just getting on there and getting smoked by kids who, haven't hit puberty yet.
If you needed that to zombie out and reset and like spark again, I'm all for it. You do whatever you're doing because by the sounds of it, it's working. And in terms of that is working, this is another quote that I read off your Twitter page, and I want to just learn from you in the voice text rather than the text version what this quote really means for you. And I'm going to read it here now. So you mentioned, don't practice taking shots, practice making them. One's a habit, the other's a mindset. Can you explain this?
Yeah, so it was something originally that Kobe Bryant said, actually. And he is someone who I would say it was very unfortunate to hear of his passing. I was very sad. I literally, from across the room, have a set of 5 books of Kobe's that like are around Kobe's life that yeah, I'm a big fan of Kobe. And it was something that he said, and then if you sit with it, for him everything was about, you know you don't practice doing the thing, you practice like being like doing it right. You practice making shots. It's a mindset that when you take the shot, you know that you're going to make the shot. Whether or not you make it isn't what matters. You
Mhm.
practice with the understanding that you will make the shot, and then if you miss the shot, you forget about it immediately and you go back to practice making a shot. And so to me, as it's not about like, I hope I'll be good. I'm going to try to be good. I am good. I'm going to succeed. I am the best. And it was something, that the Mamba mentality in,
Mm.
in many ways to me was the way that he approached it was that the whatever happened before immediately had to go away, and you had to go back to believing that you were going to succeed, and only that in mind. Sole focus of success in mind. You go after it, and if it doesn't work, that's okay. And that was where it came from. Was I was actually reading one of the Kobe books, and I added a little bit to it. His quote was just, it was a magazine article that he had done, and he was asked, and he said, don't practice taking shots, practice making them. And when I really thought about it, it was exactly that. Like, one's a habit, one's a mindset. You can practice doing things, or you can practice doing them right. And it's a very slight mental shift to be able to take, but particularly in entrepreneurship, let's say like with Mydin, like there's no roadmap for anything that I've done. There's no case studies for anything that I've done. Every single time we have a conversation with a new potential partner, I'm literally completely making up what I think that can be done. Like I literally go about just being like, I think this will work. Oh, let's try this. What do you think about this? And the idea that I have to be able to continually on a daily basis walk into uncharted territory to try to figure out what we need to do to be able to attain success, while at the same time truly believing that I can create that success, as opposed to going, I think I'm going to try to succeed. No, 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 I'm going to succeed. And
Every time.
that's it. Every time, whether or not it works, whether or not the meeting happens, sometimes people flake, whatever it is, every single time you go in being like, this will work, I will make it work. And I have found it's one of the things that people ask a lot about in general is just like, I have a conviction about me. And that conviction is something that's contagious. But that conviction doesn't come because I'm pretending. I'm not like, I really
No, you
believe the
believe it.
things that yeah. And the thing is that in entrepreneurship in particular, it is such a lonely road because you have your ideas, you're going about doing it. There's almost no one who really understands. No one's working on that same thing, and the part of believing that I find young people who come into entrepreneurship believe is they believe in like the rah-rah stuff when they get on social media, and they have arrogance. They try to use arrogance, but like confidence is very different. Confidence is very quiet. When you're laying down at night and you're having trouble sleeping because you're thinking about something that you're unsure of how you're going to solve, how do you quiet that? Because like the real conviction comes when no one is around, it's late at night, you're having trouble sleeping, or you're woken up in the middle of the night with problems that you're having in your company. Confidence and conviction really matters. And to me, that mindset of genuinely believing that you will make it happen is the difference between the two.
Yeah, and it's like you're not giving up. You are the one that's going to make it happen. And that's like the conviction that I can hear coming through from you. And I want to ask you another question. We'll finalize this one out. And it's probably going along the same theory of what you've just been talking about. But I want to know, like, this mindset that you've crafted, or maybe it was innate, of just not giving up, sheer determination, hard work, all of these attributes that I am hearing from you today. If you were to speak to your 17-year-old self, what are the words of wisdom? What messages would you send to him?
Hmm, good question. If you're going through hell, keep going. Because if you stop, then you stay in hell,
That's so
right?
true.
Right? And so the ups and downs are inevitable. But if you decide to stop when you're in hell, you can't go anywhere else. And so
Yeah.
when you're going through hell, just keep going.
Yeah, you don't want to stop when you're in hell. You got to get the hell out of there. I love that.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly.
Very fitting. And yeah, I'm gonna hold on to that one as well. Like, don't stop when you're in hell. You got to get the hell out of hell, right? So, um,
Exactly. That's exactly it. Like you have to keep pushing if for nothing else than the fact that you have to get out of hell. And then once you've gotten out of hell enough times, you sort of develop an innate understanding that it's just cyclical and hell never lasts and it'll pass and you'll be okay.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I am sure you have hopefully inspired a lot of other people, because I know even my run up into this conversation today, I was really excited and I really loved learning a lot about your past. So I hope I've managed to bring a little bit of light around your stories,
This
your
was fun.
backgrounds. And I want to know, well, everybody else probably also wants to know, how do we get in contact with you, with Mydin, follow the story, and see what's coming up in Q4?
So following Mydin is just X Mydin on Twitter. We're trying to post more regularly on LinkedIn. On Twitter, I am Azeem K underscore AZEEMK underscore. I use it more than I wish that I did. My DMs are open. I post quite regularly on LinkedIn as well. In general, I find that I do my best to be quite accessible. And so, you know, I do check my Twitter DMs on a weekly basis. I check my emails. I'm just ak@mydin.team. So yeah,
Very
anyone who wants to reach
transparent.
out,
I was saying, what
yeah.
about your written articles? How often do you publish them, and where can people find those?
So CoinDesk, I have not done enough CoinDesk for a couple months. Forbes, I try to do 1 to 2 pieces a month. But if you just type in, Azeem Forbes, it comes up. Azim CoinDesk comes up as well. I have author pages that are available that you can actually put notifications for on too. But yeah, I'm actually after this, I have an article to write today that I'm hoping to publish in the next day or two.
Well, there we go. We can actually, all I'm going to do is I'll tag, or I'll put the article in this description, so make sure that anybody can find it very easily and connect with you like that. So we'll make it easy for
Awesome.
everybody. Wow.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining and sharing your stories, sharing your insights. It's been a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun here. So I hope you enjoyed as well.
I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Bye.